Welcome, everyone.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. And welcome, everyone. It's really good to see you here, and we are glad you could join us today. My name is Sebastian Atonkroma, and I work with Reform Initiatives as a Programs Officer for Human Rights. It's an honor to open this space with you today on behalf of Reform Initiatives, and also with sincere gratitude to our partners at the Deep South Solidarity Fund and then the Center for Mississippi Food Systems. Their leadership, solidarity, and long-standing work in community-centered food justice are central to why this conversation is happening today. And then we are genuinely grateful for their partnership and also for making this possible today. Uh, I want to um, introduce Reform Initiatives, just a brief introduction about what we do. We are a Pan-African organization. We are independent, ethics-driven, and grounded in a simple belief that African-led solutions are essential to building justice both locally and globally. Our work spans between reparatory justice, transitional justice, human rights, democracy, and governance across Africa and the wider African diaspora. We are based here in Ghana, Accra, and but we also registered in Sierra Leone and the United States, obviously, because the issues we are responding to do not respect borders, and neither do the communities living with their impact. At Reform Initiatives, we believe that justice is not abstract. It shows up in everyday life. It shows up in what people are able to eat, in who controls the land and resources, and in who gets to make decisions about what is planted, what is even harvested, and who benefits from the work of feeding our communities. When those decisions are unequal, injustice becomes something people carry with them daily. That is why this conversation we are having today matters so much to us at Reform and also to our partners at the Deep South Solidarity Fund and then the Center for Mississippi Food Systems. Food insecurity is not only a technical or policy problem, it is a justice issue. The climate crisis does not affect everyone equally, we must admit, and neither do food systems. When women farmers, indigenous producers, and Black farming communities carry the greatest risk whilst holding the least power, we are dealing with structural injustice, not chance by chance. It is by design. One of the roles we see for ourselves at Reform Initiatives is creating spaces where people can learn from one another across context and geography.
Did we lose him? Hello?
Hey, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You back?
All right,
Yes.
all right, sorry. I think I went off the, sorry for the technical challenge. Today, we bring together farmers, organizers, researchers, advocates, and food system actors from Ghana and the wider sub-region and the deep south of the United States. Each of you bring insights and experience that matters. This space is not about a single story or a single solution. It is about listening carefully, learning from each other, and thinking together about what justice-centered climate action looks like in practice. Before we move forward, a few quick notes. This session is being recorded and we will share a public summary afterwards. Making conversations like this accessible beyond the room is important to us because it amplifies the impact of what we are discussing here. The chat is also open, and we invite you to use it to reflect and then share your reflections, and then also ask questions and connect with each other as we go. Thank you for being here and for the time and the care you are bringing into this space. Before I hand over, I want to briefly introduce our key note speaker, who also doubles as our co-moderator for this webinar, Noel Didla. Noel is an immigrant from Gunta in South India who now calls Jackson, Mississippi home. Her work spans policy, practice, resource generation, and critical production of knowledge and culture. Noel is deeply invested in people-centered movement, systems change in Jackson, across the Deep South, and in the Global South. She is a co-steward of Deep South Solidarity Fund, a 5-year giving experiment that focuses on supporting Black, Indigenous, and people of color leaders, their institution, and their movement infrastructure across Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi, Georgia, and then Alabama. At the heart of Noel's work is a commitment to principled, long-term, rooted in the people and places she calls home and belongs with. We are honored to have her with us today. Noel, the floor is yours. And thank you all for making time to join today's webinar. We are grateful. Over to you, Noel.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Just want to thank Reform Initiative team led by Mahmoud Kamara for making this conversation between Ghana and Mississippi possible. And Reform, as so many of you know, is leading transformative change in Ghana, all over Africa, and inspiring us all into lifelong commitments for justice, repair, and responsible global development. Thank you, Mahmoud, and the fantastic team at Reform for all that you do and all that you're making possible as a legacy for next generations. And I know for a fact the ancestors are pleased with the work you do. Sebastian, I'm extremely grateful for you for anchoring this webinar and for how you brought us all in so thoughtfully together to have this conversation that's been a while in the making. I want to thank Chef Pinta, Cindy, and Alex for agreeing to be part of this conversation. Very grateful for how you all show up for yourself and your people and your places, and how I can't wait for this magic to happen. I cannot wait to see how you all have this conversation and bring so many of us into more awareness, more reflection, more commitments, and I would say more love towards our people and our places. And I also want to thank all of you who have chosen to join us today across the many time zones. Thank you for being here with us. This is a very critical conversation we are all here for, and we deserve to be present in our bodies, to listen, to be curious, to ask questions, and finally to also be the resources and share resources. So I'm asking all of us to settle in, get comfortable for the next 90 minutes. So let's take a few breaths together to prepare ourselves to be present. If you can, lower your gaze from the screen or close your eyes. Take a breath in and breathe out deeply to bring your body fully into the present. As we all take a second breath in, breathe in gratitude for the ways food brings each of us joy, and breathe out care towards those experiencing food insecurity. As we take the third breath in, breathe in gratitude towards the women in our lives, and breathe out gratitude towards women in our community and the world who lead food and climate solutions. As we take in this last collective breath together, breathe in gratitude towards yourself for being here, and breathe out a commitment to be present in your body as a practice of care. Slowly raise your gaze back up to the screen and settle in to intentionally listen and participate. Thank you all for doing this. And if you can go on mute, we're going to start this now. So when Sebastian asked me to be part of this conversation and bring Ghana and Mississippi into a space, it felt timely, it felt right, and it felt necessary because of the relationship we're building between ourselves as Deep South Solidarity Fund and Reform Initiatives and the Center for Mississippi Food Systems. So the three guests we are going to hear from bring perspectives on how gender and food security are impacted by the climate crisis and how their interventions are impactfully shaping policy, transforming culture, upholding dignity, and making upward economic mobility a possibility. So I will offer a brief intro to the geographies in the conversation today for the sake of those who may not be too familiar with what Ghana looks like and what Mississippi looks like in the context of food and climate. According to the UN Food Program data, as of early 2026, Ghana faces a significant food insecurity crisis with approximately 13 million people, roughly 38 to 40% of the population, experiencing moderate to severe food insecurity. The situation is most severe in northern regions, with about 2 million people facing acute food insecurity and over 1 million children under 5 suffering chronic malnutrition. According to the Global Food Banking Network, climate change impacts are evidenced by rising temperatures, erratic rainfall, and increased droughts, floods, severely exacerbating food insecurity by disrupting rain-fed agriculture, which employs roughly 44.7% of the population. Roughly 3.2 million tons of food are lost annually, while climate shocks reduce crop yields, causing 50% of the population to be moderately to severely food insecure. Female farmers face higher labor burdens as natural resources dwindle, reducing their ability to secure adequate food. According to the Netherlands Ag Network, Ghana relies on an estimated 2 billion to 3 billion annually in food imports to feed its population, with poultry imports alone costing roughly 300 million per year. Let the context and the numbers sink in. Don't hold your breath, because a lot of times we hold breath when we are hearing information such as this. So I urge everybody and I offer everybody to listen without holding your breath if possible, because this is important information, but it is also traumatizing information. And this information gives us concern in our bodies, right? And that's why we are here, to have a conversation on interventions, conversation on what people are making possible. So I'm going to now give you some data about Mississippi. According to the National Institute of Health data, Mississippi has one of the highest food insecurity rates in the United States, with approximately 17.3% to 19.4% of its 3 million residents struggling to access adequate food as of 2026. This crisis impacts over 500,000 people, including 1 in 4 children, with particularly severe high rates in rural areas and the Delta. According to Feeding America, it is estimated that an additional 364 million annually is required to meet the food needs of all hungry residents in the state. According to the Mississippi State University Ag and Forest Experiment Station, climate change exacerbates food insecurity in Mississippi by intensifying heat waves, droughts, and flooding, which degrade agricultural productivity and disrupt supply chains in an already vulnerable region. Rising temperatures and erratic rainfall threaten staple crops like soy and corn, while also causing heat stress in livestock, reducing overall food availability and increasing economic strain on rural communities. According to the data shared by Partnership for a Healthier America, Mississippi imports the vast majority of its produce, with roughly 90% of food consumed in the region grown elsewhere, creating a paradox where a majority agricultural state relies on outside sources for fresh food. While Mississippi exports large volumes of cash crops like soybeans and cotton, it imports most fruits and vegetables. That was a lot, right? Those numbers. So we are here now with a group of brilliant people who are working on addressing the solutions for everything I mentioned in their capacity, in their time, in their regions. So I'm going to ask them 6 questions, and we have about an hour for these three folk to be in conversations with each other and also respond to the questions. So about 10 minutes per question. And then we're going to be in a conversation with all of you. And then we're going to close. So that is how we're going to spend the next few minutes together. So the first question for all three of you, Cindy, Chef Binta, and Alex, you each are being present in your life's purposes. Can you share your personal testimonies of what shaped your decision to commit to advancing food security through culture, policy, and economic development? What have you made possible so far? So, however you want to answer, whoever wants to go first. Chef Binta, I know you have network issues. It would be great if you can go first,
I think
followed
I'll
by
go
Cindy and
first.
Alex.
Look at my environment. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me for this stuff. I'm truly happy and excited and honored. And for me, I'm very passionate about food systems, especially food systems in Africa. And I'm always in the field, and I think I've had some life experiences and also just field experiences that shapes me as a chef, but also as an advocate for indigenous food systems. I can take you back to my early teens when I grew up in Sierra Leone, so I experienced civil war in my early teens, and I had to flee Sierra Leone and go to my ancestral home because my family is from Guinea, Conakry. And coming from a very large family, I'm talking over 1,000 first cousins, and moving into a very small village that could accommodate about 200 people, the food that was available in that village couldn't sustain us. So we had to lean into growing ancient grains like fonio, millet, sorghum. And that period really shaped me, not just as a chef, but just as a someone who cares so much about community, food, and how that, how we connect through food. So when I became a chef and the conversation around sustainability, food systems, became a thing during the COVID, I wanted to add more value in that space. but in a very intentional way, because I spend a lot of time in rural communities connecting with the people you consider the gatekeepers of our food systems and learning from them, documenting. But also, one thing was missing for me, the value being placed on these ingredients. Like something like fonio is an ancient grain, but it's also considered forgotten and underutilized. And I go to markets almost every week to buy my food to, prepare dishes for my kitchen. And I can easily access food that has, traveled miles away from Thailand and different places. Basically, I always like to say the foods that are jet lag, but you can't find food that is, grown or considered ancient in the market. So I wanted to change that as a chef. So that's how my passion and drive started to champion grains like fonio and millets. But just talking about it and adding it on my menu wasn't enough. I wanted to that are growing the food, the ones that holds the keys, to the solution we are desperately looking for. And I started spending a lot of time with them, but also supporting them in areas that they need support. Because these grains are ancient because they are very tedious to process. We don't have enough mechanization to process these grains. So there is that gap, and I wanted to support. So I invested in machines in Fonio, in women. About 200 women now uphold this fonio in the north of Ghana. We actually have a larger number. We have about 630 women, but we are taking it step by step to support these women. So we invested in machines, and now they are able to grow fonio, but also process it in a less tedious ways. And also we've also conducted a year training with the support of FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, to support these women to place value. So when they process a grain, it doesn't end up with sand in it. And also making them understand that they are the gatekeepers, they are in charge, shifting that power, but also not erasing their identity and their culture, because most times there is that issue of coming into these communities, trying to give them a better life, but forgetting, not being sensitive around that, and trying to erase, their heritage. So we our steps are always very holistic, making sure we are sharing space with them in the most ethical way, respectful way, being open to learning from them and exchanging and building, because I believe that African food, but indigenous food in general across the world, has so much to offer the world right now. So in a nutshell, this is what I do, and this is the reason I wake up every day and be in spaces like this. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you so much, Chef Binta. I had the amazing opportunity to taste Chef Binta's food when she offered the Dine on a Mat during a time a few months back when I was in Ghana. And I can tell you, fonio is very healing. And we are very fortunate to have Chef Binta be the bridge between the rural producers and the urban consumers and reclaim and bring back ancient foods to impact our health, impact our wellness, but also impact women's power to produce and the power to rebuild the culture of our communities. Thank you, Chef Binta, for all that you do. Yeah, we're going to hear more from Chef Binta in a few
Thank you
minutes,
so
but
much.
right now, we're going to listen to Cindy and then come to Alex about their stories from Mississippi. So, Cindy, over to you.
Great. Good morning, and thank you so much, Chef Benton. I cannot wait to taste some of that great food. I'm Cindy Ayers Elliott, and I'm a farmer. I'm a full-time farmer and rancher here in Mississippi. Actually, I'm in Jackson, Mississippi, which is where my farm is. It is a 68-acre urban farm with animals as well. We do vegetables, fruit, and grass-fed beef. My coming into this space was a hand that was much stronger than mine to direct me into this space. I was an investment banker out of New York for many, many years, but I'm a native Mississippian. So I had the pleasure of working in finance and policies throughout my career. But the best career I've ever had is the one I didn't seek for, and that's by being a farmer. and a keeper of the land. I'm so proud to be a farmer here. Right now in Mississippi, we are growing varieties of vegetables, and we work very hard with the community to bring in healthy, affordable local foods. And chef, I can understand, waking up and seeing food around you, but none is coming from you. So that's an important part for us. And as a woman in agriculture and farming in a non-traditional type form, by looking at how we can compose food, economics, health, and wealth all under one umbrella is a tempting task, but not one that I think that we cannot overcome. That's the reason what we're doing here is so important, to be able to communicate and to talk about, we understand the problem now, what solutions are we coming? And a part of what we're doing here that I'm a great part of is bringing localness and the importance of food that's grown in your backyard, in your flower pots, in your coffee cans, and anything that you can put a seed in to grow. Like our counterparts on the continent home, we have great weather. A lot of times we have more great weather than we want because of climate change, a lot of rain or a lot of drought. We experience that too. But one of the things that we do have access to is irrigation. So we're able to irrigate more. But here with me at Footprint Farms, we're looking at different ways we can grow, not just from the soil, but also from the water base. So we're looking at utilizing any resources we can and have at our disposal to bring it closer to the community to actually use. But one of the most important things that we do is to inform, to bring the knowledge of education and to let everyone know not just the importance of food, but how you grow it for yourself. Because I agree and concur. If you're being told what to eat, when to eat, and who can eat, then we're truly being controlled not by self, but by others. And until we understand and realize the importance of what we have to do for self to become more sustainable, then we will continue to fall in that trap of still waiting for someone to feed us. And we have the power to feed ourselves by coming together and working together and exchanging ideas. For me here in Mississippi, we reach out to great groups to look at people a lot smarter than we are, to bring in the policy part, because policy is very important. You cannot do and change unless you are changing policies, mindsets, and policies. We have to look at having more access to the table, and not just to eat, but to bring something to that table as relates to policies and concerns, to government, and being able to have a voice. Very important to what we do and how we do this. But for me as a farmer, we're always looking at what we can do better, how we can do it smarter, how we can integrate more people into this. So we do free training throughout our state, talking about what's available and understanding the power of seeds and understanding the power of community, by actually coming together and looking at how we border, what we grow, how we can be more diverse in what we do and how we do it. So it's always a challenge, but there are solutions. And by doing this and bringing this to the forefront, to talk about it and to let people truly understand it is a crisis that we're in. I think COVID showed us a little part of what it could be. It could be so much worse. And if we don't start doing things now to put other things in position, then it will be worse. And the COVID that we have would be called daily life. And we have to do whatever we can now to prepare, to store in our food house for what it is to come. So for us, the training component, being able to share information, being able to bring the power of the seed and of the harvest to each and every one is truly part of our mission. To be able to market that as well, because we have to look at how do we sustain. In order to be able to sustain, you still have to grow. There still have to be an economic impact in place for it to continue. So for us, we are very, very pleased to be here. Ghana has a big part in my heart. I was there last year, and I will be coming back with some other groups that we work with in the continent. So it's exciting. I am a farmer. I'm a woman farmer. I'm the first generation of farming in my family. We did a lot of social work as it relates to civil rights I stand on the shoulders of some strong ancestors that did a lot for the state of Mississippi and the country as it relates to justice and getting rights that we all hold dear, that we still exercise daily, and that's being able to speak, to bring voice, and to bring voice to others who cannot speak for themselves. So I'm anxious to get more conversation, to hear more. I love to listen, and I love this part of being able to share. Noel, thank you so much. I'm going to now pivot over to my esteemed colleague, to Alex, to whom I love the opportunity of working with and being able to talk with him when there are concerns, and there's always concerns, and with Noel as well. So, Alex, again, good morning to you, and good morning to the continent.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much, Cindy, and thank you, Noel, and to the Reform Initiatives and everyone. I'm really excited to be here. So, as they've said, I'm Alex, and I'm a co-steward with the Center for Mississippi Food Systems, and I wear many hats, and that's because at the core of what I do, my work sits at the intersection of economic development, community finance, and really systems change. And I spend my career thinking about not about how we build stronger communities and not just through individual programs, but by strengthening that underlying systems that shapes everyone's daily lives. And I think that's a through line across all the people you'll hear today. So my purpose doesn't come from just one moment, but really it's a pattern that's shown up continuously throughout all of that work. And I remember early on, it started when I was a little bit younger, working in a school in an underserved community. And what I saw there really did change me. I saw brilliant young people full of potential, but carrying a lot into the classroom. And it had nothing to do with their ability to learn. It was the hunger, it was instability, and it was that reality that for some of them, the most consistent meal they received was the one that came from the school itself. It was in that environment that I realized that we can talk about education reform all day, but if the child doesn't have access to healthy, reliable food, we're asking them to overcome something that hasn't been addressed. And it was that first real encounter that I had with food insecurity in that school system, not as an issue, but as a lived condition. So I moved that into my work in the community development finance industry. And there I saw the same pattern, but at the community level. And we saw that neighborhoods without access to healthy foods were often the same neighborhoods without access to capital, without strong small businesses, without stable housing. Food deserts weren't just isolated, but they were signals of this broader disinvestment that was happening across those communities. But I also saw the flip side. So when you invested in food systems, when you financed grocery stores, when you supported local food entrepreneurs, when you strengthened supply chains, we weren't just improving access to food, but you were creating jobs, you were circulating the dollars locally, and you were stabilizing communities. So it then began to click for me and so many of my other partners that food really is infrastructure. It's cultural, it's economic, it's deeply tied to policy. And that's what led me and really informed a lot of the work that I do now as a co-steward at that Center for Mississippi Food Systems. And it's because it's taking everything that we've seen at the individual level, the community level, and helping to build something a little bit more intentional and more coordinated. Our flagship program is a fellowship of food systems thinkers, where we've taken a cohort of people intergenerational across all sectors of our state in Mississippi, to collectively learn and build together. I've been part of efforts that have deployed significant capital now into underserved communities, supporting businesses, strengthening local economies, expanding access to essential goods and services, including food. We've helped shape policies and other strategies that move us away from treating food as a standalone issue, but towards seeing as a part of this broader system, connected to health, wealth, land, long-term economic mobility. And now through the center, we're working alongside others to both identify and align additional leaders, institutions, and the resources together so that Mississippi can build a food system that's not only more secure, but more resilient, more locally rooted, more reflective of the people that it serves. For the first time in its history, we're working to build a food plan that truly serves all of its people. Because at this point, I don't think for any of us, it's just work. It's more of a call it rooted in, at least for me, what I've seen and what we know is possible if we get it right.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, Chef Binta, for sharing a part of your stories with us. I'm sure There's so much more to share, and we can all listen to each other for hours about how we came into the work because these origin stories are so important to set the tone to the conversation so we can see ourselves in the context of our purpose, in the context of our people, in the context of our place. Because as you said, Alex, and as Cindy said, and as Chef Binta said, we are here because we believe this is a commitment for life. It's part of how we want to move in our mission, generational mission, right? So it's so important to start with these conversations. Um, Sebastian, is Chef Binta back? She was having issues reconnecting. Is she here? If not, I will move the call. I mean, I'll ask Alex again or Cindy to step in to talk about their questions. So, Sebastian, let me know if Chef Binta is back because I don't see her on the screen.
No, she's not back.
She's not back. Okay. She's texted me and said she's trying to join. So we're gonna wait for her to join. But Cindy, Mississippi is the most food insecure state in America while having a long growing season, as you mentioned earlier, and some of the most fertile soil in the country. How are you building the power of local production and informing how folk engage in local food production to consumption? What has been in the way? What are some of the challenges you have seen so far? And you earlier mentioned the intervention that you did during COVID. Both Alex and I are witnesses to how you did that. So if you want to talk about any of that over the next 3 minutes, that will help build more context into you and Mississippi and the work taking shape there. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is a lot to talk about in 3 minutes. But let me just say this. The difference that we are doing and we have to do is always about access. It's what we can put in place together to make it work. And it truly is a team effort. It's not just one. We were able to help to grow more food, but in order to grow more food, you have to be very conscious of the land and the space that you have. So one of the things we looked at is how do we get more access and how do we plant and looking at logistically what makes sense to take something that's already available, but to make it work for us, especially as small farmers and farmers in place. Now, Mississippi has a lot of land. It's not the land mass, but most of the crops that's grown here are commercial crops, not grown for human consumption, but for ethanol and for cattle and for other reasons, but not for people. So one of the biggest part with this richest soil that we have is actually growing food that's going to sustain people themselves. And for us, not waiting and looking at what we have, encouraging. If you have a backyard, if you have a stoop, to start growing some food for yourself and to start working with your neighbors and exchanging what we grow together and how we do this. So it's going back a lot, Noel, to community. It's going back to truly pulling in our village back together and start working more together. We have to get past some of the injustice that we put upon ourselves and start looking at a clear path to what we can do and how we do it. It's important, it's so very important for us to bring the community together, but also the leadership that's there that we elect to help to govern where we are. But we have to go further than that. We have to look at being more knowledgeable of the food system. For instance, there's so many people, and especially our young people, have no idea where food comes from. They think it's a store. They think you just wake up and it's just there. And it's not. And you don't realize what's not there until you don't have it. The same thing with access to clean water or to water. You would think that would not be a concern in America, but it is. It's a very concern in rural areas and even with the farmers and the way they're farming with the poison that they're putting into our earth comes back up into our real water. So it's a lot of different entities we have to look at. But for us, we're going and individually talking about it. This is how you can do it. This is how you can grow. If you've never grown before, does not mean you can't. Let's start with this one little seed. In fact, this little mustard seed and show what this little mustard seed can do. ensuring the power that we have within. And we are truly blessed to have a relationship with the soil, from the hands to the soil, from our ancestors to what they've done and what we will continue to do in order to take full effect of what God has given us. So we have to look at things differently. We have to share more. We have to truly get a system in place that truly, and Alex said this, how does it work for everyone? How do what we do come together to integrate it in to make it work for everyone? But we too have to be very selfish in this, very selfish to look at what we can do more for ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I'm not saying individually, I'm saying collectively, to how we can sit at the table, how we can grow together, how we can input what we have in place. A lot of times it's not money, it's time, it's knowledge. A lot of times it's the space that you have that you're not utilizing that we can do together. And to me, that's the most important part, which is one of the best resources we have, and being able to gather that together in the right place for the right reasons to truly make an impact. So for me, it's doing this, reaching out more, talking about it, but taking action to make sure if you do one step, let's do one together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Pivoting to you, Alex. Now, earlier you mentioned how you're building the power of leaders and institutions. If you can share some more about that, because as a state in the Gulf South, Mississippi is impacted by the climate crisis in a very unique way. The whole Gulf South is impacted very differently than other places in United States, and because of our issues with, I mean, the challenges we have as a state that's impacted by poverty, it looks unique, right? So, how does building of leaders and institutions address the solutions for food and economies? And what's been in the way of working on these solutions, or what challenges have you been seeing as part of the work?
Yeah, that's an important question because the climate crisis, and it truly is that in a place like Mississippi, it's not an abstract idea. Like it's here. It's showing up in people's daily lives. We see it in higher energy costs, in flooding that disrupts neighborhoods and small businesses. And it shows up in our food systems as well. It's disrupted growing seasons and supply chain instability and rising costs for family. Even when you think about the ability for people to afford homes, the insurance costs have gone up significantly because of increased severe weather patterns. So when we talk about building power here, we're really talking about helping leaders and institutions respond to reality in a coordinated and a durable way, and at the speed that it's needed, not in a sort of theoretical fashion. So, Mississippi and the broader Mississippi River Delta region is becoming increasingly central also to the national conversation around food and climate. The reality is that the bulk, nearly 75% of our fruits and nuts and come from one region in California, a significant portion of our vegetables as well. Mississippi is primed to do that, but as Cindy mentioned, a lot of it is being used for commercial production that's going towards fuel and animal feed. So as the climate pressures reshape how and where food can be grown across the US, there's a growing recognition that regions like ours need to play a larger role in not only feeding ourselves, but in feeding the country. Which means that the work to do here just isn't local, but has national consequences. And that's why partnerships matter so much. Through collaborations with a lot of the organizations that we've talked about here, we're beginning to connect that local food system work to the broader climate strategy. And the goal isn't just to produce more food, but it's to produce it in ways that are sustainable, resilient, and economically inclusive. And that last part is really important to me, because there are smart people with lots of money who will figure things out in a way that works for them. But how do we ensure that the small local producer, the Black and Indigenous farmers, the people who are running the restaurants and the stores are central to that and not only get what they need out of it, but benefit from it as well. And if production increases without the right systems in place, we risk repeating the same patterns of extracting value from communities without building wealth within them. So when we talk about building power, it's always in that context for me. And it's about connecting the dots between food and energy and land and economic development. It's about building institutional capacity so local organizations can access capital, implement solutions at scale with what works. I think about the time I spent in the banking world, and during COVID, there was economic stimulus money that the government was sending out through the banks for small businesses. Many farmers did not realize that they themselves were a small business and um, deserve to have access to this funds, but also it required people within those institutions to realize that how the system was not working for them, how the money was not naturally flowing to those communities, and be really intentional about creating interventions to ensure that it gets there. So that's what I mean when I say aligning the people and the resources. I think as you look around, you'll see that there are committed leaders, but we need a little bit more coordination to match the scale of the challenge. And through that, making sure that you're centering the voice of the community in what we're doing, especially the people who are most impacted, they should be the ones benefiting the most from the next phase of growth. And the reality is that the stakes are higher now. The Delta is going to play a larger role not only in producing for ourselves but for the entire country. So that it just means that the onus on us to get it right is just even more. So in summary, I would say we have to build a system that's not only productive, but is just, sustainable, and rooted in the communities that make production possible. So that's the opportunity that's in front of us and some of the challenges we have to overcome along the way.
Thank you so much for that. And Chef Binta is not here, but earlier she sent me a short video uh, of the work that she is doing. She's in the process of doing a brick and mortar space for the women farmers to have access to so that they are engaged in production in a more sustainable way. So she sent me pictures and videos of the progress of that work, right? So there's so much to celebrate as we think about the challenges, and there's so much to reckon with in terms of the progress we have already made to get to this point, as Cindy was saying, right? And so, thank you both, and thanks, Chef Pinta, for all the work that you're doing. And now, again, going back to you, Cindy, where do you see this work, I guess, in the next 10 years? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see Footprint Farms? Where do you see time? What will you be making possible across the next 10 years? And the same question for you, Alex. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where do you see the work in the next 10 years? Do you want to start, Alex?
Sure, I'll start. So when I think about systems, I see myself as someone who's still deeply committed to and rooted in the work, but in building up the power of others to continue to move it forward. So I see us working to transform the education sector and the banking system and the restaurants field and the suppliers and the purchasers to be filled with people who understand how all of these things are connected, who understand the connections between the climate work and the food production work and all of the other pieces that we're discussing. So I'm always the type that, as I described, between working from the education sector and the banking and the government space and in the food systems leadership development, can wear many hats and almost any hat, and it's hard for me to predict which one will be on in 10 years, but I know it'll be something that's targeted towards finding a way to move industries and systems and people and institutions towards being more just and centering the people who are most impacted by this work.
Thank you. Cindy, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? Where do you see the work taking you in the next 10 years?
Well, thank you so much. Okay, can you hear me now? I've actually lost signal. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, to get more better technology. For what reason is just disconnected. But what I do see myself and doing, and it's still about for me is community. I see more myself organizing where we are right now to bring in more farmers, to bring in more ranchers, to let them understand the importance. and to let our young people know that we are much more than just a farm. You know, we are truly more than just putting a seed in the soil, but about growing a seed in the minds. But we need to let our people know the importance of and the value in, as well as the wealth in becoming a farmer, becoming a producer, and looking at how do we take our food that we grow and not do any wasting with it. That's a lot of research that needs to happen. How do we take our food to go to value added? Well, that tomato today might be only 3 days to live, and we can take that tomato and do value added and have tomato sauce for years to come, and to be able to stockpile that, you know, within our kitchens and within our communities. So for me, it's looking at how we can bring in more integration to less food waste, to bring in more people and young people into growing and farming and growing individually for self, to get that knowledge of how you do it. And for us, it is always about how we can do it together, how we can make it work for all of us, and to make money with it as well, because it's important for economics and for yourself to be able to continue to do what we do. We have to have that. And in order to move some things forward, we have to look at it collectively. It truly is a system, and a system that has to be in place that benefits all the people. But coming together, bringing our resources, bringing our talent, sitting down, being intentionally on how we structure and how we integrate into the system, but also how we create a system of our own that we have to start operating in. More togetherness of doing so, sharing more information, and bringing in the entities that are available. For instance, for us, we do a lot still with USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, seeing what's available and how to get access to that. Because so long we've been outside of that, not being able to enter into a lot of things that's available, but we didn't know, or we didn't know and couldn't get access. So now with great advocates like you and other people to be able to help break down some more of those barriers, we're able to do more for ourselves and to bring more to the table to operate with. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the future and the networking and coming in and holding hands more with our continent, with our people, with our ancestors, with our friends and our neighbors, to actually start doing much, much more for humanity, doing more for our individual self, and truly making our community a community that cares, a community that uplifts, a community that enhances what we're doing and how we do this. So I am so proud to be a farmer. Yes, I'm a farmer and I love working in the soil, but I'm also a farmer of minds, in order to bring in some brilliant minds that we have, utilizing our universities that we have available, bringing them in closer to what we're doing, and to them to us and us to them. So it's an education on both sides. It's a reckoning of the understanding that we're all in this together and we can work together. But our young people truly are a big part of this for us. We want to encourage more coming into agriculture, to look at it as a business, but also a business of community. So I'm excited about this, and I'm hoping, I think I'm seeing double picture here, but I did not want to lose this opportunity to speak that, and to speak the word to everyone, to know that we can and we shall make a difference on this continent, make a difference on this planet, and make a difference for the right reason. That is to serve all mankind and to take care of this earth that we should hold more dearly than we do.
Thank you for that, Cindy. Thank you for always stretching us and challenging us to be better than we are. Um, Alex, uh, and Cindy, again, Chef Binta is having real trouble uh, connecting back to be with us, but we are holding her in our spirit, knowing she's doing what she deserves to do. Um, the question now is, Cindy, it goes back to what you said earlier. We are all doing what we do in our regions. We are collaborating, but how can we be more mindful in how we collaborate, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm going to come back to you on that. But Alex, if you can speak to how do you see us building between the American South and the global South, with particular focus on Ghana and Mississippi based on who's already at the table and who is still not at the table, who could be at the table, right? So that's the question for both of you. And then there are questions being placed in chat, and I'm going to welcome everybody who's here with us to start putting questions in chat or think about the questions you want to share in chat, because after Alex and Cindy respond to this question on responsible collaboration, we're going to be in conversation with you all. So please feel free to start adding questions and we will get into them shortly. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you. So I think it was 2024, I traveled to the African continent for the first time, and it was in a trip to Accra, Ghana, and did not stay nearly long enough. Can't wait to go back. But it was after speaking with people, I think we were in Spain, and invited to conversations to continue there around transitional justice, around reparations, and really, how do we connect all of these different communities who are having similar conversations to learn from one another, to grow together, to build together, to share resources and knowledge? And what really struck me was just truly how aligned we were. The similar questions we were all pondering, and how do we repair what's been broken? How do we build systems that actually serve our people? How do we move from the shared history to a shared development? And it just makes so much sense when you connect a place like Mississippi to a place like Ghana. Mississippi is one of the blackest places in America. Ghana sits in a region that holds deep ancestral ties to that blackness. And the relationship between the Deep South and West Africa was shaped through, the violence of the Atlantic slave trade, but it's also preserved in cultural, agricultural, and economic knowledge that still lives on today and is embedded in all the practices that we share, whether we know it or not. Um,
Mhm.
and you think about, people from Mississippi, some authors and other influencers who spent years in Ghana and later reflected on that journey as something real, that even across the distance and time that there's been this pull toward reconnection. When I share with friends and family that I went there, so many of them long to go themselves. So for me, the path forward sits at the intersection, or I guess really the question is like, what do you do with that connection? And I think about just the intersection of all of the things that we've talked about today, gender, food systems, economic development, and what we can do from where we are now. As we begin to open up those connections and pathways, we begin working in the ways that we can so that we're ready for those moments and those joint conversations too. Um, both in the American South and in Western Africa, women have always been central to food systems. So we talked about that earlier and heard from Chef Binta. We see that in practice with Cindy, but growing, processing, trading, feeding communities, all of that. And yet they've often been excluded from the capital and land ownership and policy decisions. So if we're serious about repair, not just being symbolic, but economic, we have to invest there. And there are many ways we can do that. That's connecting producers, entrepreneurs, and institutions across Mississippi and Ghana so that the knowledge flows in both directions. And it's not just about one place teaching the other, but about truly a mutual exchange. I also think about sharing models of community finance and local ownership. That was something that came up a few times when I was there. But just figuring out ways to ensure that the food systems grow, that the people closest to the work are the ones who benefit from it. And what do lending practices look like? What does economic policy at the local and national level look like to remove some of the barriers? Um, and then it's we mentioned women earlier, but centering them truly as economic leaders in the work, not just as an afterthought, but as a core strategy for
Mm.
development. We see how well that has worked for us in centering women as leaders of our food systems fellowship. Just naturally, it wasn't something that we just came out and said, but making sure that they have a place at the table. So I think when we start doing that, having those conversations in our own circles, we can then begin to bridge further across the diaspora as well, and begin looking at what repair looks like in person in practice. And when I say repair, not we're repairing a lot of things, and it's systems that were handed to us that were broken, systems that we're just embedded within that are broken, ones that the onus is on us to repair, and ones that we just need to do vocal in bringing others to the table to help repair. But we know that there are things that need to be repaired along the way, and I think by bringing us together is a great way to help us do that.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Cindy.
Concur. We do have the power. No, we need to utilize it. And that is the power of love, the power of communicating and sharing, and the power of understanding. We are each other, and each other are we, by doing things together and sharing what we know and being able to put it where it makes sense. There's wealth. We're, as Black Americans, as Black people throughout this continent, we're not all poor as they want everybody to project. There's wealth. And we need to look at that area of letting our people that have to understand that we have to do it together, that you have to share and resources as well as knowledge and talent to, again, our universities, and we have our great minds there. So let's utilize it more. Let's utilize those students, that brilliance that's there. I truly believe that they are a big part of our future. And I think right now, getting into agriculture and getting into the food production part of this truly is a matter of life and death. We have to start looking at it as it is a major crisis of how we can eat and how we can feed our people healthy foods, not just a filler, but food that helps to stop the diseases that's preying our community, to do away with high blood pressure, diabetes, to look at what we can do better for a better quality of life. I know it's hard to think about, not eating certain things, but we have to look at how we prepare it, or how we look at it differently, and how we can do this. Our ancestors lived great, healthy lives, and we can do this as well by living from the land. But we have to start taking better care of the land itself, for our people and our people to do this, but to understand why we do it and what we can do differently. I'm truly a believer in that one little seed. I think we plant that one little seed and we see how that one seed can make millions of seeds. And each time doing something else different with that by spreading it, and encouraging it to do more in agriculture. And women especially, we know how to take a little and make a lot. Because as a mother, as a grandmother, as a wife, as a sister, we've always had to do things a little differently to share and to be there to take that one little seed and make a whole meal. That's amazing work. It's a miracle within ourselves. But pulling all of this together and exchanging ideas, exchanging information, and sitting down and dealing with this is true facts. It's not going away. What can we do? How can we do it? And how soon? Everything won't happen overnight, but we have to start. We have to start doing more of this, with Reform Initiative, with so many other groups and organizations that are out there. We have to bring more of them to the table together, not just being in silos, but coming together to truly share, to look at this through a lens of understanding that we have to live. And one way we have to live, we have to have access to food. And in order to get access, this importing in and out, we got to start doing it differently. We got to start looking at what do we have right in our hands right now, and how we can utilize that? What do we have in front of us? What's in our backyard? What can we take? If we can't grow it in the soil, then let's grow it in the water. We have this great sunlight. If we can't do it in that form, we need to look at ways that we can. And we need to start looking back, going back to our ancestors and the things that they grew and how they grew these things and the different value added we could do with this. So to me, it's all about utilizing what we have, taking it and taking it three steps further, by being able to maintain what we have. So I'm all about self and us, and self being us, not just one. That's the part we got to get out of these our minds, that it's just about us. It is not. It's so much bigger than that. So we have to start utilizing and bringing it more together. And we started by doing this again to reform and to the great work that's happening here, Noel and Alex, and spreading that word within ourselves, outside of ourselves, and continue to talk about this. And I'm blessed to believe that I know the power that we belong to and whom we belong to. And that's things that we can do. But we got to start looking at it open-mindedly and do it together.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Chef Binta. Thank you for the reminders you give us, Cindy, around why it's important to think beyond our own selves and think through the lens of a community and the lens of all the people in the community. And because of how policy and leadership, bad policy and bad leadership have impacted our food systems, our exasperated climate crisis, and our economies too, right? So thank you for that reminder. And thank you, Alex, for bringing in repair and helping us think about repair in the context of systems and repair in the context of leadership also, and repair in the context of institutions. This is a beautiful conversation. And now, and yeah, if I can give a big round of applause, if we all can give a big round of applause to our guests and presenters, it's been beautiful. So there are questions in the chat, and I'm gonna um, start reading the questions to you all. From Tulani, there seems to be a disruptive element to the introduction of capital, which somewhat poisons the mind and process of community and carry out the work. How do we allow for access, resource, but also prepping the minds of organizers and people for access, and what it means in a future approach than a money now spent repeat, not being rhetorical. So I guess the question Tulani wants us to give concrete examples of how people can access. That is how I'm understanding it. Is that correct, Tulani? How can we allow for access of resources and also prepare the minds of organizers and people to understand access? That is one question. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I can start with that. So I really, if I had to summarize my work in a lot of these spaces, it's in one word. I'm typically a translator. So I help people who need the capital understand what the folks who have it are looking for. What is it going to take to get it into their hands so that they can do the good work, while at the same time helping the people with the capital understand the need and understand how their systems might need to change to better meet the need to serve what they say that they are there to do. And so often what I find is that I cannot and should not be the sole translator, but have to equip people on both sides to be able to do that work too. Um, and a lot of times that's what it is. So sometimes it's just helping people understand, building awareness of where the capital is. And under the example I gave before with the COVID in the United States was around funding that was available for small businesses and helping farmers understand you are a small business that can get it. You just need to say this on the application, and you're not lying. You're telling the truth about your work. In fact, they're waiting and expecting that, but no one's coming out to say that to you. And then on the banking side, going to say, hey, you're missing this entire group because they don't understand, they don't use this language. Can you meet them where they are? The other thing that I always encourage people to do is to understand that because you are operating in the system that treats you like a business or will only provide the capital if you view yourself and speak those terms. You've got to understand it. You got to understand the accounting and the mechanisms behind what you're producing. You've got to keep track of all the financial records, et cetera. You've got to be able to track the impact of your work and use the numbers that the grant makers and all the others are looking for. And it's not something you have to do alone. Build a network of people who are doing it, who've done it well, who've been successful in the past, big or small, and learn from one another, and figure out how you can help. And then also recognize where you don't need to sort of reinvent the wheel, or where you can partner with someone who's already doing that and build an exchange between the two of them. But I've seen that work lead to more resources and community. And then the final thing I'll say too is just getting creative. I remember working with a community in the Mississippi Delta that really wanted a grocery store. And the numbers just were not shaking out in terms of getting the profits that the grocery store needed to be able to sustain itself. And we just kept working with them and going back to the drawing board to think about what could potentially work. And what ultimately ended up happening is we realized that they needed access to healthy foods in their community, and there are a number of ways we can do that. So it can be something as simple as a community garden, but it also could be maybe we can't afford a grocery store, but we can afford a refrigerated truck that can then go 30 minutes away to the next grocery store and bring that back to the community. So you have something at a smaller scale. We prove the demand and the need in that community, and then that's data that we can use to leverage to get a grocery store in the near future. So both figuring out the pathway to get to what we want, but also getting creative about how to solve that problem in the meantime was a tool we used to attract the capital.
And if I
Thank you,
could let,
Alex.
and if I can, let me just continue on that one. You're absolutely right. We have to start understanding that we have to be able to see what they're asking and have things in place to make it work. As a small business, you don't do as well of a job as you should with your financing. And we're so lax on that, that causes us to lose a lot of opportunities. So we have to start looking at how we better show ourselves and tell our stories, and not just by word of mouth, by paper. You have to have your numbers and your reporting. You have to bring in people, if not you, someone else that does this, and to work together to do it. And don't be afraid to say, this is my debt. This is what I don't have. Sometimes that pride get in the way. We don't want to open up or to show or think that the government doesn't know. They know everything. So utilizing what we have is important. And I think we have to reimagine, because for our communities now, and this is in Mississippi, but I'm in other states in the U.S. Well, we have to look at things differently. It will not be this brick and mortar big stores coming back in. There's different ways we have to do this. We have to start looking at what will stores look like now and tomorrow. How do we bring in things right in our community that we can resell to ourselves? So reimagining, and that's what we're working on right now. What can it look like? What should it look like? If it's a mobile unit, and I think we have a lot of great food trucks, but they're bringing in food that's still not as healthy as we want it to be. But how about those grocery trucks? How about now, instead of having a liquor store at every corner, a place you can buy alcohol, how about reimagine what it would look like to have actually fresh food and staple items that's affordable? Another things we have to look at is that when you're hungry, you have to eat. And what is coming up in our communities is more about the dollar and not about the welfare of the community. So we got to start looking at who's coming into our communities and how we're funding businesses there, and what I'm not asking, what are we demanding of them? If we're putting our money here, then you have to demand the kind of quality that it should be there. And we should stop accepting anything. We are deserving of the best. And in order to do that, that means we got to grow the best, we got to put it out there, and we have to make it accessible. And we can do this, but we also got to start looking back at the resources that we do have. I'm going to go back to our religious institution. It's time to step up even more. There's land available that should do more than just have grass growing on it. It should have food growing on it. There should be more community gardens, but it's a different way of community gardens. And traditionally, it's not going to work the way it's been
Mhm.
put in, because it truly doesn't affect us the right way. When we say it's community, I think it's just to be free. It is, but you got to put something in to take something out. It's not about just one side of it. It has to be all of us. My grandfather would say, you cannot come to the table with just an appetite. You got to bring something to the table to help prepare for that meal. And sometimes it's your hands, it's your knowledge, and a lot of times it's your dollars. But it takes more than just those dollars. It takes that willingness of that heart and that willingness to understand we're going to build something. And it's not going to look like what it's been looking like over these years. It is not going to be that way. And we have
Mhm.
to make it so. We are the ones. We have to make
Yeah.
it so.
Thanks, Cindy. Thank you for that. And all the things Cindy is saying as we should, she's already doing. I want to mention that. Everything she's talking to us about, she's already doing. For example, Rosemont, the church in the neighborhood where Cindy's farm is, Cindy has been instrumental in actually helping that church to do a community garden. She's also working on housing initiatives in the neighborhood, but she's also working on urban ag initiatives across 11 different cities across the country. So these solutions Cindy is talking about are not ideas or challenges, but these are solutions at work. So I want to bear witness to that because I see what she's talking about. I see what Alex is doing, what Cindy is doing, and I've had a chance to see what Chef Binta is doing, just as all of you are on this call, engaging in solutions work and doing what you are meant to do, right? So, yeah, there are more questions here. So, we have about, I say 10 more minutes to respond to these questions. So if we can keep the responses like 1 minute and give concrete examples, because all the folk are asking for in the chat are examples for solutions, right? So the question is from Ebenezer in Liberia. What is the best solution to tackle food insecurity in the face of climate change? Is there a best solution? Either of you can answer it. In the interest of time, if one of you answer, we'll move on to the next question. So what is the best solution to tackle food insecurity in the face of climate change?
Let me do this one. As a farmer, we know it's there. So we got to look at different ways we can do this. If it's not going to be outside in the soil, then we need to look at putting it inside and being able to utilize still our sun for it to grow. So that means more water based. We got to look at how do we grow differently than the soil in water. We also got to look at that value added, not just growing it for it's going to be good for one day, but grow it and go to that next stage to make it good for the next 3 years, to start taking it and start canning it, putting food back together to see how we can freeze dry it. There's other ways we can prolong our food and still have healthy foods in doing this. It goes back to our old landmark, back to our ancestors and how they took food to preserve it, to actually put it in that you can have it for a year at a time, that you can go back to it and still have those nutritional values. So less food waste, looking at how we can tender it differently, freezing it, hydrating it, and still having the nutrition value of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Alex, do you have a response for that? Or should I move on to the
I agree with, yeah, I
next
think
question?
I
Go
agree
ahead.
with it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So the next question is from James Kintu. Do our presenters believe there could be a governance issue about this persistent food insecurity amidst commercial farming, especially in Mississippi and Ghana? If yes, what do they think are global interventions that can lead to better results?
Mm.
Mhm.
Alex?
That's the question.
Mhm.
Yeah, yes. I think there's definitely a governance dimension to this. And it's less, I think in both places, Mississippi and Ghana, it's not a failure of production. It's more a misalignment of systems. We don't have a production problem. We're producing a great deal. The issue is who it's designed to serve and how value flows through it. And I think what we can do and what pressure we can put on the powers that be to do to sort of fix it is to shift from that this sort of commercial agriculture model that is optimized for scale, efficiency, external markets, but not the people who are there who need to eat it. And you do that by realigning the incentives. So that's through public policy, it's through financing mechanisms, et cetera. But right now, there are people who are paid to produce what they're producing. So we should reward not just how much food is produced, but how it's produced and who benefits from it. And shifting the models to be able to do that. I think, strengthening local ownership and participation in that is important. Investing in the infrastructure, so not just the farm itself, but the tools that are used to do it, aggregation, processing, storage, all the things beyond the farm as well. And then integrating all the various sectors that we've been talking about at a policy level. I think when you start to do that, you begin to address some of the governance issues that we were talking about before.
Thank you
That's a
for
great.
that. And the next question is from Joanne Burke. Thank you for this thoughtful conversation coupled with action. At these times in our country, the farm bill coming out of the House is abysmal for small farms and for continuing SNAP cuts. The access to food needs to move beyond food assistance to systems change. Removing support for small farmers is not the way to go. And so, how do these panelists address the inequitable politics of our food system?
Oh, great. Let me go with this one. Let me just say this is real. Black farmers and farmers of color are truly are in the possibility of being extinct because of what they're trying to do and how they continue to cut programs. And it affects us all by doing that. But a lot of small farmers never had access to begin with. Understand that it was not access to begin with, so they can't take something away from you never had. So for us, it goes back to being self-sufficient within ourselves. We got to start looking at how we grow more and how we utilize what we have more. Yes, we have great groups, and we're one of those that's out there fighting day and night to help change some policies. But you also got to look at who's sitting at the table that's making those policies. That's the part that we have to start looking at more is who we elect and how we hold them accountable for what they can do and what they cannot do. But for that to happen in the U.S., that means we got to get off our, what, and voice our power through our votes, and to put that out there and to bring forth greater things to do it. But we also got to look at what we have existing, and how we can utilize what we have. If you can't change it the way you want it, change it the way and make it works for us. If you give me a wall, if I can't tear it down, I'm going to paint it, but I'm also going to grow on it. We're going to put something there. We're going to use that and make it work for our communities. Go back to our community leaders, but go back to ourselves, go back to our churches, go back to the nonprofits that receiving funds. And we need to look at how we change ways, because it's not working. If it's not working, we have to change it. And you change it with policy, but you also start that with dilution of community and communications.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for that. Alex, do you have a response? I see Chef Binta is back with us, and Sebastian informed me there's a question one of the participants have emailed him about. So, Alex, once you respond, I'll ask Sebastian to come in so we can
No, nothing
hear
additional
the
from me.
question. Okay. All right. There are two questions here. I'm going to share. I think there's only one question here, but go ahead, Sebastian. Please share your question.
Thank you very much, Noel. This question was submitted by Reverend Dr. Mwepe Musonda Chilombo. In the context of food security, gender and climate change interventions, how should gender equity be understood today for girls subjected to early and child marriage in the sub-region? And what should this reality mean for the design of food security and climate resilience interventions?
Thank you. That's a beautiful question. Chef Binta, I hope you heard the question. Can you take that on?
Yes, absolutely. So sorry for the network issue. I would say first of all, we need policy.
We can't hear you, Chef.
It's hard to.
Mm.
Can you hear me?
You're breaking up. We can hear you now.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. So we need policies that protect girls and women. That's how we make that shift. Because in for me, in spaces I work currently, some of the challenges are women not having access to even land to grow their food, no access to get finance. There are so many barriers women have to fight through, and women have to
Mm-hmm.
fight 10 times harder than
Mm-hmm.
a man to get the same opportunity. So until we create that power shift for women and girls and protect girls so that they can become women who understand the value they bring their community, we will just be spending time, going in circles. So Women need to be supported, protected, educated, and policies that create a balance. And I hope for that. And I hope all the work that we do, all of us here, all our contribution can lead us to that soon.
Thank you so much, Chef. It's beautiful. That's a beautiful call to action on gender justice in food and climate action as we move forward towards concluding this call. There's one last question in chat. After that, I'm going to ask Sebastian to come in to close us out. How can we, this question is from Eric Mensa. How can we start practicing farming in our backyards, even when we cannot have access to common seeds or easy access to seed because they're expensive in the country? Chef, do you want to take on that question? Anyone? Cindy or Chef?
Yes, while Chef is coming on, let me just say this, two things. We have to look at doing more of a seed bank for self and starting to save more of our own seeds. The power that we have with this one little seed, we'll take, for example, the watermelon. That watermelon takes one seed to grow. But when you grow that melon, it's going to have 100 seeds that's within that melon. It is self-perpetuating itself. So we have to start looking at how we save more of our seeds, how we keep them, how we preserve them, and how we go back to strengthen them. We also got to utilize, and I go back to our clergyman that just said that the power is in the word and in the voice of opening up and saying the importance of what a woman is and a young girl, and the power that God has given her to do more than just do childbirth or to be more in that. They're brilliant. And we got to start speaking that out from our mouths, from our pulpits, to our men as well. But we also got to look at putting things, like Chef said, in place. We got to look at more training, more hands-on in ways that we can help transfer the knowledge, not just for the hands, but also for the minds, into being able to make a difference. But the more we look at how we take what we grow, utilizing that to start our own seed banks, to start putting more of that in place, utilizing those universities to be doing more research on items like that so we can have. That's going to put down the cost. That's going to make you more sufficient. And we need to look at setting up that and how we exchange among ourselves those type of seeds. Truly, those seeds are definitely the fruit of our harvest for us to grow in doing it that way.
Thanks, Cindy. Thank you for the reminder about, preserving seeds and creating seed banks, and also the way in which land memory works, right? So thank you for
Yes.
that. Chef, are you able to join us and respond to the question on access to seeds so people can grow in their backyards?
Hello?
We can hear you, Chef.
Yes, yes. Can you hear me? Okay, good, yes. So yes, it's very important because agriculture, foods, sustaining most of these grains and ingredients we talk about, we don't have seeds, there's no future for it. And I think we need to preserve that. But the human part is very important. If we are empowering and supporting the people that are doing the work in the field, we won't be worried about seeds disappearing. Some of these seeds are disappearing because there's not much support, and it's a lot of heavy lifting. So we need to create systems that helps them lift, to not do the heavy lifting alone. And then we won't be worrying about this. I think if we invest in the people that holds the answers, a lot of things will fall in place. I cannot overemphasize that enough. Invest in the gatekeepers.
Yes.
Invest in the people that holds the knowledge. We will not have to worry about every other thing. And I say this from just watching the challenges closely every single day. and they don't ask for much, really. Sometimes the biggest change that you want to shift, it just takes small effort. Giving people hope, making them know and feel that they are part of something big,
Yes.
letting them know that they have so much to contribute and what they are doing is so important. That hope, and when given a space to be, to contribute with dignity, it goes a long way. And I say this because from being in the farm, watching farmers struggle and seeing that most times they just need some hope, some dignity to keep going. Because when you give people hope, they will aspire for more. And when you empower them, they will aspire for more.
That's right. Thank you, Chef. That's so beautiful. And thank you for the reminder on how we need to imagine investments and how we need to make abundant investments possible in those that are bearing the brunt of the climate crisis because of gender and race in the context of America, and also thinking about how we all have a role to play in the solutions, whether it's at the individual level, community level, or at the institutional and systems levels. Thank you for everything you all are doing. And also, big gratitude at this point to how reform is making not just conversations possible, but convenings possible so that these conversations can lead to action, climate action, food solutions action, and repair in the world, right? So, really grateful to how we are moving very intentionally in our relationships. And at this time, I want to bring Sebastian back in to close us out. Thank you all so much for participating in this. Those of you who joined us, and then our guests who have been so brilliant in spite of the tech challenges we had. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Noel. As we come to the close of our time together, I want to pause and say a big thank you to you, Noel, Alex, Dr. Cindy, and Chef Binta, and also the incredible staff at RI, Reform Initiatives, who are working behind the scenes to make this possible. Also to our contributors and everyone who joined from different time zones and places. We are grateful for the insight, honesty, and generosity you brought into this conversation. Spaces like this only work when people show up, willing to listen and learn from one another. And that has been clear throughout today's conversation. Yeah, and from us at Reform Initiatives, this dialogue reflects why we do this. Justice-centered, community-anchored conversations, especially those led by and accountable to African and diasporic communities, are not just an add-on to justice. They are indeed central to it. What we have started here today across food systems in collaboration with our partners would go beyond this conversation. And we are happy to stay connected beyond today with you at Reform, together with our partners at Deep South Solidarity Fund and the Center for Mississippi Food Systems, and also Footprint Farms. We see this conversation as part of an ongoing relationship, not a one-off moment. We will reach out to continue the exchange, and we warmly welcome you to remain in touch as well. Building these relationships with people and organizations committed to justice, accountability, and then meaningful change is a core part of how we work at Reform Initiative in collaboration with our partners. So we will also be sharing a publicly accessible summary of today's discussion, and we encourage you to circulate it within your networks to amplify its reach and impact. We hope to continue to spark reflection, connection, and then action beyond this space. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you once again for being part of this conversation. Take care of yourself, take care of one another, and go well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Reform.
Thank you, everyone. The meeting has
Thank
closed.
you so much.
Thank you to Chef Binta. Despite all the challenges, you joined us. Thank you very much for your commitment.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.